Ready? We run these calls every single Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Our goal is to come and talk about crypto, talk about assets, talk about how to take advantage of these markets, different topics, different conversations that we've been able to have on every single session. But you guys know that I don't do this call by myself. I decided to do this call with my brother, John Luke. We partnered together on this call, and we've been partnering together for years now. And we decided to do this because you guys already know that we do not let our weekend be our weekend. It's really where a lot of us, if not all of us, can really get ahead in the markets. And, we've both been able to have a lot of years of experience. This is our second bull run. Like myself, like John Luke, there's a lot of ups, a lot of downs we've been able to have. But one thing we've been able to do is learn from every single experience, learn from every single win, learn from every single loss. And we continue to be studying this markets every single week, every single day as well. But as you guys know, we start every single call with what's going on in crypto and everything. But I want to bring up my brother John Luke real quick, so that you can get things going when what's going on in crypto. Just so you guys know, the topics today are going to be about altcoins. It was requested by you guys, literally, like we asked on the call, and you guys wanted altcoins on how to take advantage of it. So guys, put some sevens in the chat for our brother John Luke. And if you're excited for today's topics and what we're going to be going into. So I'll let you take it away, brother.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it. Definitely gassed and excited to be on this call. Gil is somebody who, as he's mentioned, has been in this market for many, many years, highly experienced. Every single Saturday, guys, we're dropping value in game. And so this week was crypto week. This was a very exciting week. Many big things happened in the crypto markets, not just technical, but fundamentally wise. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to dive into a couple of things. So let's get it cracking. So as Gil mentioned, points to discuss. We're going to talk about what's going on. We're going to talk about a little altcoin breakdown, and also a Q&A at the end. Now, altcoins, I know something Gil's going to dive into, but those are simply alternative coins to the main coins of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so there's plenty of opportunity for those coins as they sometimes lag behind the price action of the Bitcoin and Ethereums, which we're going to dive into soon. Now, let's talk about what's been going on this week, guys. Very simple. Three major legislations about crypto in the government. So to begin with, just thinking of like the constitution, the governance system in America, there's three branches. I remember learning this in political class in college, and I was studying finance and I was doing like political stuff, which is crazy. Like you do random classes in the freshman year, right? And there's three branches, right? So you have the judicial branch, then you have the executive branch, then you have the legislative. And so over here, this is kind of a good example of the three branches that you can see in the US. And so these bills, these acts, they went through the legislative branch within crypto, right, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate. And so in order for a bill to be passed, the Democrats and the Republicans, they actually have to have they must have a majority vote to pass something or to not pass something. And so all three of these actually achieve that. And so with the Genius Act, I want to dive into a little bit of what that actually means, okay? So let's speak about it. The Genius Act actually had a vote of 308 to 122. So it was a landslide victory in the Senate that passed that. And so all it simply does is it's guiding and establishing the framework for US stablecoins to be implemented. And so that stablecoins for payment, that stablecoins for simply reserves for these exchanges and for these banks. And so what that does is it simply allows more people to get access to the crypto markets, but in a safer, more traditional manner. And so Trump actually signed that on July the 18th. And it was monumental because it's the first major federal crypto law in US history. So this is not something that's like state law, as you know, for example, with the ETFs, with the reserves that some of these states have. That's simply a state decision. Texas, Oklahoma, they decided and voted to either have a Bitcoin reserve fund, for example, or a strategic reserve. But this is a federal law. So this is blanket across the entire country. This Genius Act, why is it a good thing? Because more and more banks now are going to be creating their own stable coin, but also people aren't institutions aren't going to be frightened to allow the everyday investor to have access to this because there's now some form of tax understanding. There's some form of who and how they can actually provide these services to without breaking any laws or regulations. And that's really what these institutions are scared of. They don't want to be sued by the SEC. They don't want to be sued by the FTC. But now there's actually a legal framework. And so that's basically not going to happen now. And let me just touch on one or two more points about this Genius Act, guys. So Coinbase CEO, who's Brian Armstrong, some of you may know, may not know. Brian Armstrong, Coinbase, and SEC have just been like fighting over the past couple of years, right? And Brian Armstrong's a big believer in basically giving power to the people through crypto. Now, even though this act got passed, one of the things that wasn't passed is actually allowing stablecoin issuers to offer interest on those stablecoin reserves. And so Brian Armstrong said, hey, like having on-chain interest, on-chain, which means on the blockchain, is a win-win for both parties. Why? Because it allows consumers to get interest on their stablecoin, such as 4%, 5%, 6%, but also it allows banks and crypto companies to benefit from that interest as well. And so in America, this is a free market. It's not like China where it's more institutionalized, where people cannot make their own decisions, and there's like an even playing field. In America, it's free market. And so that's what Brian Armstrong is basically fighting for. So I found that interesting because what you have is you have this act passed where they can offer these stable coins, but not with interest. So it's kind of like a very big deal because it's like, okay, I'm going to have access to the crypto market, but what interest am I allowed to have within that? And that's a lot of things that people aren't really speaking about. Now, the next act is the Clarity Act. And this had 294 votes compared to 134 votes. So this was also a massive, massive positive in terms of people voting for this versus against. And as you know, the Republican Party is for crypto more than the Democratic Party is for crypto. And so this is simply the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act. And what this does is it defines digital assets as securities versus commodities. Now there's that clear distinction between, is this crypto, XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum a security, or is this a commodity? Now that's important because they're treated differently. And so most decentralized blockchain tokens, we know what decentralized means by now. You've probably been on enough calls. It means there's no intermediary, there's no middleman between transactions. Most of these decentralized blockchain coins, they're treated as commodities instead of treated as securities, which is like investment contracts. And that is exactly what the XRP lawsuit was exactly about. Is it a security or is it not? Because if it is, it's going to get taxed differently. Companies have to treat it differently, and only certain investors can actually have access to that. Whereas if it's treated as a commodity, there's more flexibility with who and what they can provide that to. The third act that was passed is the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. Now, put in the chat, what does a CBDC stand for? What does that mean, CBDC? I'm sure many of you are aware now of what a CBDC is. Put in the chat, CBDC. What does that stand for, guys? Central bank digital currency. Yeah, Jack is exactly right. 20 people in the crew love to see it. A central bank digital currency. Well, that's simply where the bank has your private keys. They have ownership to your crypto, and they are offering a stable coin that you can have access to, but you do not own. Now, that has pros and cons. One of the pros is that you don't have to have the accountability. Like the security of your funds is in somebody else's hands. And for a lot of people, they prefer that because they don't want to have the pressure of like typing their private keys and managing all their crypto money. But what's like one of the cons? Well, the con is that you don't have full ownership to it, and you can't do with what you want to do with it at any time of the day, whenever you want. There's going to be certain limits and restrictions to those funds with that CBDC. Now, what does this bill actually mean? This Surveillance State Act bill, the CBDC, prohibits the Federal Reserve from issuing a central bank digital currency. That is exactly what Trump wanted. He does not want government to have full control over the crypto market. And that's why he fought to say, hey, Federal Reserve, you guys are the central bank for traditional currencies, for fiat, for USD, right? You manage all of the retail banks and the interest rates, but I don't want you getting involved in this crypto because it's a free market approach. If Biden was in power, that's probably not going to be the case. Like Biden was for CBDCs. He actually wanted to take ownership and to have more control over your funds. So these are three very important acts that got past federal guys: Genius Act, Parity Act, and the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. All of these are massive pros in the crypto market. Why? Because it now brings some form of legal framework for large institutions and companies to offer this to more customers and consumers. Now that ambiguity isn't there, so it's only going to increase the pool of funds that's in the crypto market. And that's exactly why the market cap hit $4 trillion on Friday morning. It's never hit $4 trillion before. What does that mean? That means that the entire volume of the cryptocurrency market of 13,000 plus coins hit an all-time high. Now, I know Gil's going to touch on this, but let's be real. What were the two main cryptos that contributed towards this all-time high? It was Bitcoin and Ethereum. And actually, what's interesting is that Bitcoin and Ethereum accounted for 70% of the total market cap of crypto on Friday. That is a huge amount. That means only 30% is going to the altcoins. I say only, but 30% of $4 trillion is a lot of money. That is $12 billion, guys, going into altcoins that are not Bitcoin and Ethereum. So these are key things to keep in mind. All positives to the long-term crypto market. Now, for the short term, for the people who may be doing, let's say, arbitrage or looking for certain short-term opportunities, it may not look that positive. But that legal framework is a good thing because we're going to have more big money come in the market, guys. And big money moves the markets, and we simply follow that. So that's the news for what's going on. I'm going to pass it over to Gil, and we're going to go back and forth on some of the altcoin plays that you guys can keep an eye on.
Facts. Love that, guys. Put a 3 in the chat if you guys got some information, some more value on like what's going on. I'm happy he actually went through that because that's like the biggest thing going on right now, and really great breakdown on like what's going on, what it means. These are things I want you guys to know that they might, I don't watch the news, so they might be showing them on the news, but majority of people do not know what's going on. They're just like, oh, crypto. Oh, cool, right? And, it's very exciting. It's very interesting. A lot of the things that, we're past, kind of like the whole no CBDCs, federal, the whole goal, this is just knowing how Trump works. He just doesn't want it in the hands of the Federal Reserve. That's what he doesn't want. I don't know if you guys want to give a quick guess on like where do you guys think Trump wants the power of the economy in? Like what type of category of, you can say, people do you guys think Trump wants really the power of like where crypto's going in? It's a specific group, in my opinion. And I'm going to bring up this article, but I'm going to tell you guys this now. It's businesses, right? He wants corporations and businesses because he's a businessman, right? And I want you guys to know that the reason why they decided to do that, in my opinion, from all the research I've been able to see, is that we already have Walmart, Amazon, other corporations that were exploring this before it was even passed. This was June 13th, guys. It was passed this week, right? So where we already have big corporations who are getting ready to launch their own stable coin. Now, that's very interesting, but what can that look like? Now, imagine if you had the dollar, right? Which is most likely going to be like a USDC when it's like all in completely crypto. But imagine if when you go to Walmart, you don't pay in USDC or in the dollar that we have at the time, right? Or whatever it is, a dollar. You transfer that to the Amazon stablecoin to buy on Amazon. You transfer that to the Walmart stablecoin to do that. Now imagine when obviously people get gift cards, right? That gift card is gonna have their stable coin. What this creates is like their own bank. That's literally what it is. It literally creates like their own bank within the corporation because you can only pay in their currency. They hold their currency, right? So this is a very interesting thing. Is it going to take time? Yes, in my opinion, it won't be like tomorrow, right? But I just want you guys to know that the whole purpose of this, from what I've seen, is for corporations to get ahead. That's really what it is about. So for us, it's just to stay knowledgeable. There's not much that for us we can like take advantage of at the moment unless we own like Walmart and Amazon. But what we can do is understand what's it's gonna do to crypto, right? What is gonna do in the markets. And the first thing I wanted to show after I wanted to show this because I think this is very interesting is that I wanted to show the cycle we have in crypto. Now, put a 1 in the chat if you've seen this image before. Put a 2 in the chat if you've never seen this image before. Yeah, it literally is like Starbucks, by the way. Starbucks already has their own bank. I don't know if you guys know that, but literally billions of dollars. Cool. So a lot of you guys have it. Okay, cool. Amazing. So this is the cycle that usually has happened within crypto. Now, I want you guys to, and I'm going to need y'all's help, right? So yeah, we can kind of get the breakthroughs together. Let me know, what crypto do you guys think right now is at like that the most movement that we've seen, like the crypto that everybody's talking about right now? Let me know in the chat box. What crypto is everybody talking about right now? Okay, Bitcoin, right? So as we can see right now, and we'll pull up the chart here in a little bit, everything, most of the higher highs, most of the money that's came into crypto has been coming into Bitcoin. So as we can see, that is what we call phase 1 to alt season. I'm going to break down alts, and it's really not that complicated. But just so you guys know, everything starts with Bitcoin. Why? It's the biggest one. It's the most known. It's the gold of cryptocurrency. That's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is not really going to be used on a day-to-day. It's going to be more like a storage of value. That's really where it's really projected to be at, and that's really what it's supposed to be used for, right? Then after that happens, guys, we have something where ETH starts to move. Now, put a 5 in the chat if you're starting to see ETH move. It's quite crazy how like literally this happens. But put a 5 in the chat if you saw ETH move this week. Like, I remember we were on these sessions, we were talking about ETH, guys, and we were talking about ETH when it was at 2,000, 2,500. It literally almost doubled in like not too long, in like a month, right? So this is something that is happening right now. It hasn't transformed into phase 2 completely because phase 2 is when ETH starts to outperform Bitcoin. And we hear about something called the flippening. Now, I'm going to give you guys a disclaimer, right? When we hear about outperforming Bitcoin, it doesn't mean that Ethereum becomes more expensive than Bitcoin, okay? That's not going to happen. There's something called tokenomics, the numbers behind it. We'll talk about a little bit about that, while helping you guys understand that's not what they mean. It really just comes down to outperforming percentage-wise, right? Meaning Ethereum is moving a lot quicker than Bitcoin. And that is something that we're getting to very, very soon, in my opinion. But it's a really good sign that we've seen Ethereum has started to move quicker when it was being quiet for a while. So that means that the money flow, it starting to transition a little bit, okay? So that's the second phase. The third phase, guys, is after that starts to happen, after Ethereum, usually when Ethereum creates all-time highs, is when we start to see all other large caps do the same. Now, other large caps are examples like Chainlink, are examples like Solana, are examples like Sui, like ICP is technically a large cap because the layer 1, right? These are the other cryptos that are also the bigger ones, like the XRPs, right? These are the ones that really follow what's going on after that. And then after the big large cap ones move, and we'll talk about this again, the numbers and the charts, is when we have alt season. Now, like John Luke was breaking down, altcoins, all it is literally the alternative coin. That's what altcoin means, alternative coin, right? Technically, it's anything outside of Bitcoin. That's when alt season was even created, or altcoins were even created, was when Ethereum came out. It was anything other than Bitcoin. But really right now, it's really mainly anything outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Because Bitcoin and Ethereum are really now being like the top 2. That could change, but really altcoins, guys, are just anything outside of the biggest ones. And when we talk about alt season, that's when we talk about like the low cap coins, right? That's when meme coins are going insane, like insane, right? That's when these small cap coins are going from, 100,000 to 100 million market cap, right? That's when things start to go parabolic. But that also is the sign of a top, because that is when the most excitement, the most euphoria, the most you're going to see on TikTok, the most you're going to see on Instagram, the most you're going to hear about it is going to be the alt season. Because remember, people are attracted to fast money. That's when people want to get in. When they hear the story of 100x, 1,000x, 10,000x, a million X, that's when the average person says, okay, it's worth my time. Because remember, most people just want to come in and gamble because they just want to get it quick. They just want to make it happen. People love gambling in the U.S., believe it or not, in a lot of different countries, right? So the biggest thing is that's a good question. We do not know what month it can happen. That's the biggest thing about investing, guys, in the markets, is that we don't know the timing of it. The only thing we can see is the charts and the numbers. Those are the only things that we can see to project potentially where we're at. But when it comes to, hey, this month or that month, or this month, this is going to happen, that's very unrealistic because we do not know what could happen. And right now, in my opinion, the markets have changed because now crypto is in the government's like faces, right? Now they're passing laws. They're moving the markets because of the laws. I don't know if you guys realize, but why is it that BT or crypto as a whole hit a $4 trillion market cap on Crypto Week? Like, it's kind of obvious, right? Like, they're really moving the markets. When their tariffs were talked about, crypto plummeted. When tariffs were not talked about, crypto started to move. So just letting you guys know, we're moving in a different world right now. This is not 2017. This is not 2020. This is now institutional play, government play, and that's something that we have to really look into. So other than that, I don't know if John Luke, bro, you want to touch on something when it comes to this cycle, but we'll go from there.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, just like think of this analogy, guys. Let's say somebody has $100 million in $100 million net worth, right, in the markets, and then somebody else, the average person, let's say they have 10K in the crypto markets. Well, that's not the average person, but let's just say they have 10K, right? Now, that person with $100 million in crypto, the vast majority of that is in Bitcoin. Let's just say 90% of that is in Bitcoin because that's literally how the wealthy are playing this. So that's $90 million in Bitcoin. The person with $10,000, what percentage of that do they have in Bitcoin? It's not 90%, it's not 80, it's not 40, it's probably like less than 30%. And the reason why is because for that person with $10,000, the returns on Bitcoin with just 10K or less is minimal. A 10% rise for that $10,000 is only $1,000. But for the guy with 100 million, a 10% rise is $10 million. So what I'm trying to say here is Gil said about institutional money. The reason why path to alt season, these phases, is important to know is because it's only big, big, big money in Bitcoin. It's only the 7, 8, 9 figure earners who are actually in Bitcoin. Because ask yourself, how much money do you have in Bitcoin? Do you see what I'm saying? And not just how much money, what percent of your portfolio is in Bitcoin? The percent of portfolio in Bitcoin for me is barely any because I'm a risk taker and that's just how I'm playing it. You know what I mean? But that just shows you. So the big money, it will trickle down from Bitcoin because when Bitcoin goes up 10% and that $100 million goes up 10 mil, they take that 10 mil and what do? They then put it into Ethereum. They then see Ethereum move up 20% because if the Bitcoin moves up 10%, Ethereum moves up slightly faster, let's say 20%. And then that 10 mil, they make 20% on the 10 mil. What's that? That's 2 mil. Then they take that 2 mil and funnel it into phase three large caps, the Polkadots, the XRPs, the Solanas. And then guess what? Those coins, they don't go up 20% like Ethereum, they go up 30%. They take that 2 mil, make 30%. What's 30% of 2 mil? That's $600,000. And they take the $600,000 and put it into phase four altcoins because they're playing with it's for funsies now with the altcoins. They just put in 600K. That 600K is how much of their 10 mil? It's 6%. The 6% of their entire portfolio is in altcoins because it's just, small cap coins with a high risk and a high ROI potential. Does that make sense? Put a 10 in the chat if that makes sense. I just wanted to paint that picture so that you guys understand why understanding these phases is important. It's not for people like us. It's to know that the big move, the big money is being redistributed as Bitcoin ROIs are going up. Let me show you one more thing. I just want to share my screen real quick. Um, Somebody in the chat mentioned about what month? What month is Bitcoin going to boom up? What month is this going to happen, guys? Well, look on the left side. This is Bitcoin's quarterly returns over the past 12 years. Now, I'm not, a genius with patterns, and I think a 10-year-old can look at this and realize something. There's a pattern here. In Q4, in Q4, it usually seems to be bull market season. When you look at all the other years, Q1, there's more red than green. Q2 is like almost 50-50. Q3 is, yeah, probably like 50-50, 60-40 in terms of bullish quarters. But Q4, there's only one, two, three, four bearish quarters out of 11 years. So that's just an example of the probabilities of things going parabolic in Q4. And so why is that? There's many reasons. Number one, consumerism. Everybody's spending money in Q4. Everyone feels like they're rich. Why? Because Christmas is coming up, because Thanksgiving is coming up, and because that's just generally how the retail markets are. Another reason why Q4 is popping is you have the votes. What do you call it? They happen every 2 years. Midterms. You have midterm elections. You have presidential campaigns. That's why Q4 is also popping. Another reason why Q4 is popping is the stock market is booming. Indices markets are booming. There's a lot of volatility. So I'm not saying Q4 everything's going to happen, but based on statistical history, yes, Q4 is when we see a lot of these movements occur. I'll pass it back to you, Go.
Facts. And keep that chart up real quick because I'm happy you brought that up. Because I want you guys to also see something else, right? You guys can see that, what John Luke was talking about, Q4 for BTC literally is statistically from the numbers, right? Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. But we can see here that it's the most bullish. But I want you guys to look at the right. I want you guys to look at Ethereum. And it's wild how it connects. Because let me know in the chat box, if you look at the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and you go down and you go to average, you see the average, what quarter for Ethereum is the highest, average-wise? Let me know in the chat box if you guys are looking at it, right? Let me know what quarter of the year does it show that Ethereum is the most returns. Okay, remember, Bitcoin is Q4. We can see it, right? It's 85% average gain, right? Yes, Q1. That's exactly what we just talked about. Think about that. The highest performing for Bitcoin is Q4 from what we're looking at here. Q1 is usually for Ethereum. And remember, what follows after Ethereum? Let me know in the chat box. What follows after Ethereum? Alts, smaller alts, right? The next altcoins, the large caps, and then the alt season starts, guys. So just looking at these numbers, again, these are potentials. Every year can be different. As you can see, we have red months, Q1, Q2, but from where things are looking like, it's looking to be somewhat similar in a way. So I'm happy you brought that up. That's actually a fire visual representation because that's where things can really lead up to. So what I also want to do now for you guys, I'm going to share my screen, is I want to show you guys now on the charts, okay? The first thing I want to show you guys, since we're talking about, Bitcoin, Ethereum, everything here, is I want to show you now how you can see it on the chart. The first thing is Bitcoin dominance. This is how much percentage in all of crypto is in just Bitcoin, okay? So you can literally pull it up on TradingView as BTC dominance. As we can see right now, we're at 61%, but we've had a fall from 66 to 61. And right now we were looking for this area of rejection. There's a lot of reasons why. If you guys study, which a lot of us do here, right? We study smart money. We can see that this is a big, taking of liquidity, right? As we can see here, boom, right? This is what we call like an institutional move. This blue candle, because it's a fast rise and then a tank, right? So this was an area of potential entry. So this is what we can see, that it's literally came into this area, and is rejecting right now, guys. We've been waiting for this rejection. That's what has sparked everything else when it comes to Ethereum now, because it doesn't mean necessarily that, yes, there's more money coming in because of market cap change, but not that much. What really changed is the money is moving, right? And this is something that we're going to see more and more and more of. And what I decided to do, because I like to use Fibonacci, is even just this move right here, even it going to 50% of this move, we're looking at Bitcoin being around 50 to 52%, which I think that's a very realistic number. Now, could it go maybe here? Yes, it could, but I personally think that from here on out, it will be 50% or around 50% or more in the future within Bitcoin. Because remember, Bitcoin is going to be like gold. So there's going to be more money in the markets, of course. So other coins are going to grow in what it's going to be. But majority of it will really be in Bitcoin in the long term, because this is where people are going to hold that kind of wealth. So it coming down here, just so you guys know, Bitcoin coming down here doesn't mean that crypto is going down. Majority of the time, actually, crypto's going up. The amount of money in crypto, but where is this money going? It's going to that next asset, which we just talked about, which is Ethereum. Okay, put a 2 in the chat. This is making sense, because I hope it's kind of like some breakthroughs are happening, because this is very key. This is what most people don't even know about it. People just hear about Bitcoin or whatever it is, right? So now this is the Ethereum dominance. And we can see, obviously, the opposite is happening. So Bitcoin is going down in dominance. Ethereum is going up in dominance. So me looking at Fibs, kind of going from here to here, for an example, right? We can see that maybe Ethereum can go to where it's at, which is around 11% of the whole market, maybe to here, right? So around 15% to 18% of the whole crypto market. So that means I want you guys to do the math, and I don't think I can do it in a calculator because big numbers, but let's say the market cap of all of crypto, all of the money in crypto goes from 4 trillion to 8 trillion. Now, if you do 15% of that, of 8 trillion, that can give you a maybe idea of where Ethereum can go if the market doubles, right? We don't know exactly, but I can see it maybe being at least a 6, 7, 8 market cap when it comes to all of crypto. So that just gives you an idea. Now, there's another chart I want to share with you guys, and this is a total market cap. We talk about this a lot on these sessions, but as you can see, we've created all-time highs here. Again, these are other representations of what we just talked about. All-time highs are broken for all of crypto. Then we have total 2. Total 2 is a chart that shows how much money is in everything but Bitcoin. It excludes Bitcoin. And as we can see, let me know in the chat box, have we created an all-time high? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat box. Have we created an all-time high in this chart right now? No, we haven't. So what does that mean? Let me know in the chat box. Hope you guys are learning. So if you guys, getting breakthroughs, and that's the whole point of us being here. So what does that mean? Okay, Gail, that's cool, but what does that actually mean? Let me know in the chat box. Yep. Right? Specifically, every coin outside of Bitcoin, right? So we still have a lot of room for these altcoins, for anything outside of Bitcoin. Now we can take it a step further and go to total 3. Total 3 is everything outside of Bitcoin and outside of Ethereum. It's sometimes very similar to total 2, to be honest, but same thing. We haven't created all-time highs. There's still room. And then the last one for altcoins, this is what we call alt season, because this is a chart that shows, and it's called others, everything outside of the top 10 in crypto. So now this is outside of the top 10. So we're talking about outside of XRP, outside of all these other ones that we have, right? So this is really alt season. And as we can see, guys, there's still a lot more room. Like for it to break all-time highs, the whole market in others has to double. Literally. And that's wild. And this doubling means 10x for altcoins. Easily, right? So looking at these charts is very key. And just knowing this is very, very important, because I'm here to tell you guys now, Bitcoin is still going to run, but it doesn't have that much room to go. Like literally, Jordan Morgan is talking about this price around here. That's kind of it. But that doesn't end the crypto market. That just starts the alt seasons, because what we want to look for, and this is the last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll have John add on something if he wants, is altcoins move when this happens. When Bitcoin goes sideways, we don't want Bitcoin to go down, because if Bitcoin goes down, all of the market goes down. Just FYI. What we want to see is for Bitcoin to continue to move. Let me go to the weekly, actually. We want Bitcoin to continue to move, but then we want it to go sideways. And this is when alt season really moves. Guys, the last run, this was when alt season was moving. This is when alt season was moving. Even this last pump that we had in alt season back in the end of last year happened when Bitcoin was this. So crypto was actually going up or staying the same, but it was just a transfer of money. Okay, so put a 1 in chat. That makes sense. I don't know if John, if you want to add anything to that specific topic.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the market moves in three ways, upwards, downwards, sideways. You can call it bullish, bearish, consolidating, but that consolidation of Bitcoin, the liquidity that is built up during that phase, that allows large investors to redistribute those funds into the altcoins, everything that isn't Solana, that isn't Polygon, that isn't Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the ones that we're aware of. And so if you look at the previous patterns in the last cycle, right, the last 4 years or so, 4 to 5 years, you will find that the moment Bitcoin is consolidating and moving sideways, everyone's quiet. No one's really talking about it. The media aren't putting out buy Bitcoin XYZ. But what's happening in the back end is the altcoins are going parabolic. They're moving 3, 5, 10x. And this is the thing. You don't want to be invested in altcoins when Bitcoin's moving sideways and people aren't talking about it. You want to be invested in altcoins when Bitcoin is actually moving down, where prices are falling, and then looking for that deep retracement on the Fibonacci. The Fibonacci is that tool that Gil showed earlier. And in crypto, we're typically looking for that below 50% range for us to actually get those investments. Now, yeah, preferably we want even more retracement, like the 7018 zone or the 88.6 zone. But realistically, that doesn't always happen in crypto for us. That is why we look to DCA, dollar cost averaging, when we get those 50+% retracements on Bitcoin, because that will only leave a deeper retracement for these altcoins. So that's just something to keep in mind. One last thing I saw on the charts on the technicals is that on total 1, total 2, and total 3, we see that there is literally a equal high on all 3 of those charts. Total 2 and total 3 in particular. And that equal high typically is just liquidity looking to get swept. It's very clear to see that eventually that's going to get taken. Do you want to invest when that's taken? No. Do you want to invest when there's the retracement? So you can either seek to do your research now and look at the pricing and are we at that 50% fib zone, or you can wait for the break of structure and then come on the retracement. Whatever it is, that's something that you can seek to execute upon.
For sure, 100%. That's a great input with that. Now, I know Charlie is saying, what is the difference between, can you confirm total 1, total 2, total 3? Yeah, so total 1, like I was saying, is all of crypto, right? So how much money is in crypto? All of the market cap, how much money is in crypto, right? Total 2 is everything outside of Bitcoin. So any crypto outside of Bitcoin, right? How much money is in there? So 1.4 trillion. Total 3 is how much money is outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is 1.02. And in others, it's anything outside of the top 10 in crypto. So it's way smaller. It's $292 billion, which is everything outside of the big ones, which is basically alt season. Like these are the alt season coins, to be honest, that we're looking at here. So happy he kind of brought that up as well. Now what I kind of want to do with you guys is kind of show you guys what alts, kind of give you the example of what John Luke is talking about. Like when you want to actually get in, I know a lot of people probably get in at the tops, right? I did that myself with some cryptos last run. I learned from it. Some cryptos we were in early, but we didn't know what to do when we exited, right? So here's a good example, guys. For example, Chainlink. Now, put a 5 in the chat. You've heard of Chainlink. Obviously, we all have heard of Chainlink. We talk about this a lot. But I want to give you guys this representation on really where we're at here compared to where it was before, right? But I also want to give you guys a news flash, okay? Because it's like an extra plus that I like to talk about a lot. I'm going to talk about this on ICP as well. But I want you guys to look at these numbers, okay? I did the math and I did the numbers. And how you do it is you go on CoinGecko, right? And you look up Chainlink. And what you want to really look at is, okay, what is the market cap it's at now versus the market cap of what it was in the last run? Because I want to give you guys a news flash. Some of these cryptos have more coins than what it had in the last run. As we can see, Chainlink has 678 million coins. We don't know exactly. I would have to go back and check how many coins it was in last run. But one thing that we can see that the maximum supply will ever have is 1 billion. What does that mean? That there's more space for more coins to be created. Now, every 4 years is where you see the bigger difference of like how many coins. So what we look at is really the market cap. And as you can see, in the last run, Chainlink went on the market cap of around 20 to 21 billion dollars. Okay. And in the last run, Chainlink was $50. Okay. I want to give you guys a breakthrough. Right now, we have a market cap of 12 billion, right? If Chainlink goes to 20 billion, which is exactly where it was, as in how much money is in Chainlink, we're not going to be at the same price, right? Because if we do 20 billion divided by, you're going to divide it by this, right? So 678 million. We're going to basically be, hold on, 20. Yeah, we're going to be at $30. So I want to give you guys a news flash. When it reaches all-time highs, it's actually going to be here, not here. And this is where a lot of people get misconcepted. Oh my God, well, when it goes back to all-time highs, it's at all-time highs. No, when it reaches all-time highs, which is 50. Yeah, exactly. When it reaches all-time highs, which is $50, the market cap has to be 33.9 billion. That means in order for Chainlink to reach all-time highs or even hit the all-time high, the market cap, which is the amount of money in this crypto, has to be higher than what it was in the last run. Put a 3 in the chat if that makes sense. Because there's another coin that I like. Okay, a lot of people think I don't like it, but I do. I have it, right? But is ICP, another altcoin. Right now is at amazing lows. But I want to give you another breakthrough. Same thing applies. ICP. Let's go check it out. A lot of people think it's going to go to like 100. I'm like, do the math, right? Do the math. Okay, cool. So the market cap of ICP right now is $3 billion. Okay, the circulating supply, which is how many crypto coins, right, of that coin are out there, is 535.9 million. Now, this one has an unlimited max supply, meaning they can print more, however they want to do it, what is in the back end. But as we can see, okay, the max it ever got to, which it's very difficult for it to come out here. I'm not going to get too much into it, but basically this coin was created from investors getting in early, right? So the likelihood of it getting at the top when most investors were in, it can in the future, but I just don't think that in this run. So I'm going to use this high right here, or even this high, okay? So let's just say 10 billion. When ICP reaches 10 billion, we will actually be at $18 to $19 a coin, right? So when it reaches around almost the highs, which is back here, which if you want to, look at this, it's comparing it to this. When ICP was at this price, we were literally at $10 billion here. But when ICP reaches 10 billion this time, which is the same amount of money, the only thing that changed was the amount of tokens. We're actually going to be on $20. Am I saying $20 is going to be the top? I don't think so. It could go a little bit higher. But all I'm saying, guys, is the likelihood of this going here is very unlikely, at least this run, because you have to do the numbers. Okay. And not every coin is going to go 3, 4, 5x from the all time high. Some will, some won't, because the game has changed. But I want to give you guys some news flash. All right. So if you're an ICP right now, which I think is a great project for sure, it's AI, a lot of great things. It being right now at $5, guys, your first TP should be $20. Like literally at $20, guys, 50% out. Put a 5 in the chat if that makes sense. Because I do not want anybody within Powerhouse. This would hurt me like a lot. If everybody holds ICP to 100 and then round trips this, like I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be like, bro, like I don't know what's going on, right? I don't want to hear anybody in the chat ICP to 200. We're going up. It's gonna keep moving. Like, guys, I'm here to let you guys know we want to watch the masses. We want to do the opposite. Okay, for sure. And then Chainlink, I think somebody was asking, like, is it a good coin to buy? Yes, it is. Now there's two approaches, and this is something, the last thing I kind of say. There's two approaches with this, right? As we can see, Chainlink has moved. But what I recommend for everybody on today's call to do is very simple. Number one is decide on a DCA amount. This makes crypto a lot easier for you if you want to be more passive. Okay, if you want to be more passive, you don't want to be on the charts that much, you don't understand maybe too much on like working up. If you do, there's a better play to do. But if not, you decide on a DCA amount. Okay, let's say that DCA amount is $100. Let's make it realistic for a lot of people. That means every month, let's say every month, you're able to buy $100 worth of crypto. Okay, that's $25 a week. I'm gonna be honest, everybody should be able to do that. I'm just being frank. If not, then you're spending too much on Starbucks. You're spending too much on I don't know what. But $25, you can find $25 on the street. If you go walking on the street for like half a day, you might find $25. To be honest, like just to be real. Okay. So if you DCA $100, what I would recommend is to find 3 tokens, not 30, not 300, not 5,000. 3 tokens that you like that are altcoins. I wouldn't worry about Bitcoin right now. I wouldn't even worry too much about Ethereum right now, right? Because they already kind of have moved. Yeah, we'll do that right now, right? Yeah, we'll do that. And then I want you guys to pick 3 tokens. So let's say it's Chainlink. And give me 2 more tokens. So we're going to say Chainlink. What other 2 tokens do you guys like? Solana. Okay. Which other one? Ape. Okay, we can talk about Ape. Give me another one. Ape is like a super low cap coin, but we can talk about it. This guy. Yeah, I'm not putting any of those on the list. I'm not putting any of those on the list. Just FYI, I'm not doing it. SEI. What the heck is SEI? Sui. Okay, let's do Sui. Let's do this. Let's do one that's called out on the platform. Let's do Filecoin. Okay, let's do. He said JK. Let's do Filecoin. Okay, cool. So let's say Link, Solana, Filecoin. So what you would do in this, because Solana is bigger than Chainlink. Okay, if you want to be smart with this, what I would do is I would do $50 in Solana, 25 in Chainlink, and maybe 25 in Filecoin. Why do you say that? Because Solana has the most money, meaning the less volatility, meaning being more sure. So you have most of your money on like the bigger coin. Then you have the second amount, these can share the same amount, which is $25, which is $100. Now, whichever single one of these, just to go real quick, if Solana, okay, we'll talk about Solana first since we're on Solana. Solana tops or potentials of where you can go to. Obviously, it can depend where things can go, but the first TP I see is $300, which is previous all-time high. Second is 500. Third one could be 1,000. I would say maybe 750. That's what I have actually on my Excel, right? But what we're going to be doing is this. At every take profit, you're going to be taking out a certain percent. What I do and what I recommend is just my point of view. At TP1, 50% of my profit is out, or all the coins that I have. So if I have one coin, if I have one Solana at TP1, which is previous all-time highs, I'm taking out half of the Solana in profit. I'm taking it out, USDC, transferring it, boom, out with it. The second half, I run it up to TP2. Now, when it hits TP2, I take out 25%. And then I leave the last 25% to TP3. So that's Solana, Chainlink, 30, 50, 80, right? For it to reach $80, guys, it has to be a $54 billion market cap, which I think it can go to. But just keep in mind, it would have to more than double the last run. Okay, just letting you guys know, it has to more than double for it to reach here. So that's why I think it's a max potential, but hit 50 is pretty reasonable as well.
And one of the things, yeah, to keep in mind is, to the question of how do you find your TPs, there's three main ways that I kind of categorize the ways to set your TPs. The first way is from calculating your ROI percentage, meaning you can set your TPs based on your return on investment percentage. If you've invested $100 in Solana at so if Solana is at, let's say, $100, then if Solana goes to $200, your $100 investment has now turned to $200. So it's a 100% ROI on your investment. That can be a TP. You can have TP2 at a 3x of your investment, which means if Solana goes to 300, your $100 is now $300. So the first method is an ROI percentage. The second method is very easy. Previous all-time highs. That can be a TP. You can base it on the last all-time high and simply get out, whether that's TP1, TP2, or TP3. The third method, and this is a bit more advanced for those of you who are traders, because, similar mindset with trading than investing, but takes different skill sets to be a good investor compared to being a good trader. If you are a trader, the third way is from the technicals. What does the technicals compose of? It composes of something called Fibonacci extensions. Setting fib extensions, which is not Fibonacci from 0 to 100%, but the plus 100%, such as the 1.3 zone or the 1.7 zone or the 2.5 zone, whatever it is. So that's one of the technicals you can use. You can also use POIs, what we call points of interest. That could be an imbalance. That could be a mitigation if you know smart money trading. That can be, that can be simple market structure at previous highs. So those three ways, guys: ROI percentage, previous all-time highs, and advanced technicals, if you know that from a trader standpoint, is how you can set your TP1, 2, and 3s.
Facts. Yeah, that's definitely a great breakdown with that. Now, the last thing I'll say with that, with TPs, and we'll end it there, is one thing that I do, which is a lot more advanced. So I know there's more advanced people on the call that you guys can probably do this. And really anybody can do this if you like numbers, is what I do is I go and compare on what is market caps of where things are at now and where could I see things going based on what they do, right? For example, if I'm seeing Chainlink at 12 billion right now and I ask myself, okay, for it to reach, like I was saying, $80, I calculate how much market cap it has to be, right? Which is, again, to find that out, you do price multiplied by, or is this, wait, hold on. You get price, market cap divided by price. No, price multiplied by this gives you market cap, right? So if you do price, which is $50, multiply this, you get market cap. So let's say, okay, we find that out. Amazing. I kind of want to see $80. That means 54 billion market cap. Now, me comparing, I'm going to go here and say, okay, what's in $50 billion market cap right now? Okay, we have Solana, which is higher, right? So there's not much at 50. There's Dogecoin at 36 billion. There's Tron at 30, right? So my question is, can Chainlink, it's already a top 17 coin, but when crypto starts to move, can it be a 50 billion market cap at a peak? My answer is yes. Like my answer is, yeah, it can be because of where things are at now. I mean, you're talking about, it surpassing Dogecoin, which Dogecoin might be more, right? Because it's one of the biggest memes and just with the communities there. So that's another thing I do as well. There's another example, Hedera, another good one that already did a lot of moves. So I would wait for some rejection, but Hedera is very similar to XRP. Now, I'm not saying it's going to reach 200 billion, but can Hedera hit 50 billion? I think so. So if we go do the math to end this call, so y'all see it kind of live in the flesh, right? If we say, okay, Hedera being at $50 billion, and it's a 42, there's 42 billion coins, right? So we do 54, so 50 billion market cap divided by 42. Yeah, so we have around like $11 token, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, $1.19. That's actually what it is. $1.19 token, right? So that means right now it's at 26 cents. If it reaches 50 billion, which I think it's very realistic since it does similar things or XRP, but for other different, people, then we can see Hedera being a 1.2. Cool. $1.2 token, right? Again, this is a maximum, like potential maximum. Doesn't mean I wait for this. Okay. If you're in Hedera or got in, right? My first TP would be here, maybe second one here, maybe third one here. But this is just an example of when you compare certain projects and look at certain things like, is it realistic? Can it happen? I think that's a great approach as well. It's a little bit more advanced, but again, I wouldn't hold to the end. But if you're plugged in, guys, if you're plugged in here in Zenrai, here in Powerhouse, you already know we're going to get the tops with Max Ethereum. I'm just being real. Jordan Morgan is going to be on the charts when there's distribution happening on Bitcoin. And just so you guys know, I know Sam was asking if Bitcoin goes down, does that mean all the other coins go up? No, we don't want Bitcoin to go down. We want it to consolidate at the top. That's what we want. That's going to give us the time for the market to transition in funds. So what we want to see, let's say it hits the top that Jordan Morgan is talking about of projection, right? Let's say 175. What we want is this. This is the moment that alt season will be going. When Bitcoin starts to do this, all coins are going to dump, right? It might have something like this, just an example, okay? So it's very key to look at. Can I show my TPs on ETH? I mean, ETH is very up in the air, to be honest, because a lot of its tokenomics have changed. But my first TP is definitely 5,000. I don't know if it's going to reach here. This was a very bullish. I really think like 7,500 could be a thing, like around like this, something like that. But at the same time, guys, I'm not going to be waiting for this price. I'm going to be waiting for distribution, right? That's what I'm going to be waiting for. Something like this is what I'm going to be waiting for. Not really price, is more on the chart. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. And that's why we learn trading. That's why we have what we have. Obviously, we have everything here at Zenrai. Max Zero talks about it a lot. If you're not plugged in, guys, please plug in. This is the time to be the most plugged in crypto than ever before. Just to be honest with you guys. This is the time you don't want to, say, damn, I wish I was in crypto. I wish I was learning. And again, you don't have to have all your money in crypto, but learn through the process. If you don't have a lot of money to invest a little bit and learn this cycle. Learn this cycle. And if you make some money, cool. The next cycle, be a lot more prepared so that you can see that parabolic, whatever X you want to see in your portfolio as well. So with saying that, guys, that's basically it for me. I don't know, John, you want to end with anything out? I know we went a little bit over, but I hope it was a lot of value. So put some nines in the chat if you guys got some value from being on today's call. And basically, that's
Yeah,
it.
family. That sounds good. Add us on Instagram. For myself, it's at Gene at the Scene. And for Gills, I'm sure you guys, already, or Gil can put it in the chat. Stay tuned in. We have access to an educational platform, which is where we get all of our information from regarding the market. So, if you want to know more about that, feel free to reach out. This will be uploaded to YouTube as well. Gills on my YouTube, so you can watch the recorded sessions. We will see you guys next week, 2 p.m. Eastern. Let's get it.